Hey everyone, I'm Madonna Guy. This is David Shield.
Hello
We're
again.
here for your health tip of the day.
Mhm.
We were chatting about concussion because what a surprise. This was my training yesterday, so I thought, hey, let's do that as the tip of the day. Because pro footballers, pro sports people, lots of people have got concussions.
Mm.
And what it can do, and as my Pracky Excellence group yesterday, it can cause chronic traumatic encephalitis, which is like a chronic inflammation in the brain. And one of my clients who has a really long-term concussion, when I was going through his AO scan, so the big comprehensive scanner, and looking at everything to do with the brain, the skull, the nerves in the brain, the arteries in the brain, the venous supply to the brain, there was stuff going on everywhere more than 30 years later. So what's known, because think of Muhammad Ali. So
I was just
they
thinking of
don't tend to
when I got
disappear.
knocked out in football for half an hour when I was like in under nines.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, right. Because the chronic traumatic
playing against Penn Hill actually.
We'll have to run your scan on your brain and see what it looks like. So, so basically these injuries, they can worsen as we get older because the body then wants to conserve what energy it's got, and it sort of starts to slow down nerve supply, blood supply, everything to the brain. So therefore we start to actually get brain cells that die. And again, this is where I'm really excited. I'm sorry, I'm going to say it again.
I'm excited about my brain cells dying.
I'm really excited about the mature hops bitter extracts because that's finding that because it's working in the nerves, I believe that it's going to be one of these things that help to repair the brain with long-term brain injuries. It's because some of the studies on memory and things have been really quite good so far. So that's, and it's definitely one of the things that people are finding when they're taking it is that their memory and cognition improves. So to me...
Well, that's it. Well, what's interesting is that so with the pathways, people with brain injuries, people with ADHD have a very similar relationship with their prefrontal cortex.
Right.
So, and you'll find this in the literature with ADHD, especially guys like Russell Barkley, who I don't necessarily agree with because he recommends ADHD medication every day for the rest of your life without exception, which is uncommon in everyone all the theorists argue about this, but because most people say no, you should have a break, especially if you're a kid on the holidays and everything.
Yeah.
But they basically say that people with damaged, like because your prefrontal cortex is here in the top left.
Yeah.
People who get damaged there have similar symptoms to people with ADHD because it messes with the prefrontal cortex, which integrates the rest of the brain.
Right.
Because prefrontal cortex is the integrator. So its function is to connect all the parts. And so if it's not working, it's hard for the brain to connect all the parts together, which you see in ADHD. They have these problems not being able to focus, memory problems. And people with head injuries have the same symptoms.
Yeah.
Isn't that ironic?
Yeah, and from the kinesiology perspective, sort of these little area down over here is, so things like the survival patterns in the body, the periventricular, the area around the ventricles in the brain, it's like they get electrically wired wrong. So the body is constantly primed for stress.
Injury?
Yeah. So basically we can go from 1 to 100 energy-wise, or 1 to 100 pain-wise, or 1 to 100 stress-wise or anger-wise. So, you can be sitting here having a conversation and next thing, man, you fly off the handle really quickly.
Isn't that interesting? Because in counselling, I've got a supervisor and she recommends that people with ADHD should seek out a differential diagnosis for developmental trauma.
Right.
Because if it's true, because they're finding with the recent studies on the adverse childhood experience studies.
Yes.
They're finding that adverse childhood experiences change the brain.
Yes.
Right? Because especially in the developmental stages, in the early parts, when our brain's developing between in utero and up to 3 years old, most of the parts of the brain that regulate behavior and emotion are being developed then. So if there's something in that period, that will disrupt that brain development. Or if somebody gets damaged as little baby, but I'm just talking about the emotion and the psychological abuse that because witnessing is almost as bad as experiencing. Same symptoms from witnessing.
And from witnessing trauma and stress.
Yeah. So even though kids have got ADHD, it may have affected their brain connections.
Right.
Because if it's true that a head injury,
yep,
or they say that the first generation of ADHD comes from one of the parents being toxic,
yep,
like having they use lead as an example, when the child's conceived, that means that there's external things influencing the brain's capacity to connect.
yeah,
And whether that's a chemical, which they're saying is, so a lot of people have other chemical issues just from our foods at the moment
yeah,
when they're conceiving. And then also if there's damage, emotional damage affects the physical way that our brain works.
yeah,
Like that's a physical thing. If your neurons don't fire the same as people who grow up in a comfortable, safe setting, that's a physical deformity,
yeah.
right? It's not an emotional thing, it's a physical thing. Just like if you get hit in the head.
Yes. Well, funnily enough, the other thing is mold. So, so many people are experiencing mold toxicity in their bodies. And there's lots of reasons for that. Like mold in houses is one thing, but the way the environment is, when we get those layers of cloud on the planet that just last for days, it sort of almost like keeps the body from, or it keeps the earth from detoxing. So then we're building up molds and things out on our planet that really should be, sunshine comes along, but when the sunshine is stopped by these layers of cloud all the time, it's not allowing the earth to breathe. Then we're breathing that in. But anyway, that creates, so mold exposure and toxicity in our body can create all the same symptoms of a chronic traumatic encephalitis. And therefore, if that's the same as ADHD, mold could absolutely be involved in ADHD as well.
Well, if it affects, there's so many ways the brain can be affected. Like, for example, so just say, because a lot of these things will happen. There's two places we spend most of our time, at work and at home.
Yeah.
And so what they're finding now, workplace bullying or home bullying, they're finding that, so a lot of the research, like where the line gets drawn is when somebody's physically aggressive.
Yes.
Right? And in domestic things, it's like that. Whereas all the other stuff, emotional abuse and psychological abuse, which is manipulation, lying, emotional abuse is being, passive aggressive, silent treatment in the counseling thing, silent treatment, it's not nothing. It's withdrawing.
Yes.
There's a lot of things that are abusive that aren't doing something, they're taking something away. Like just say you're married. You've got all these duties, and if you just take them away, they're things you promised in your marriage, and you just take them away, okay, I won't be affection anymore. They found that these things I was watching it, they found it affects cancer. Emotional abuse will increase the likelihood of cancer.
Yes, absolutely.
And the stress caused will increase the likelihood of heart damage or heart attack. And there's all sorts of things it's a new area, because with the adverse childhood experience, they realised that the people who grow up in very traumatic environments, their brains were smaller, and some parts of their brains were significantly smaller.
Right.
And that stretched out into physical health problems in the future. So people end up with a much higher likelihood of heart disease, addiction, cancer,
obesity,
especially obesity is where they found it.
Yeah.
And also anorexia. That was where they found the link. And so even though things are emotional and psychological, not only they can cause physical problems in the present, but they can in the future.
Yeah.
But still the focus remains on physical problems, like at work too. At work, if someone does something physical, if they give someone a push, they'll get the sack. But someone could be psychologically manipulating, lying to them for years, and nothing happens. Well, whereas that person gets really sick, and this happens all the time.
And kids learn this at school. So, my grandson Teddy last year, the last 3 months of prep, before even grade 1, he was being bullied and his personality started to change. He's such a delightful little kid, but there was just something shifted, and his mum overheard this little kid whisper something nasty to Teddy.
Mm.
And that's when it finally came out over the next few days.
She's heard it.
Yeah, because it would have continued, because once Teddy started talking about it, it had been going on for some time.
Mm.
Now, kids don't have a huge knowledge time-wise and things like that. But
one of my kids was bullied at school recently, and it was terrible.
Yeah.
He changed schools, and what happened was there was an incident in the local park down the road.
Yep.
Nothing to do with school.
Yep.
And it got brought up at school.
Yeah, right.
And they shouldn't have brought it up at school anyway. It had nothing to do with school.
Yeah.
It was down at Davies Park. And when they brought it up, the kids found out that he was the witness.
Yeah.
Because two of the kids started beating each other up, punching each other in the face, and they were in grade 6. And so after that, he got ganged up on by all the kids. He was a traitor. There was racial abuse because he was hanging out with the ethnic kids, and it's like, oh, you're a traitor, things like that.
Goodness
telling him and his friend that they were gay and they should get married. And this is like, and then to be brought up with teachers wouldn't do anything. Only recently, the school counsellor actually, I kept complaining, and finally they talked to him, and she realised what was happening, but they were in denial about the whole thing, and this happens a lot.
Yeah.
And finally they realised all these things are true, because I sent him a list. It was a long list.
Yeah.
And they were intimidating him because he was a witness. And the way the schools deal with it, everyone knows who dobbed the kids in.
Yeah.
And all they tell him was, oh, you should talk up for yourself. As if somebody's going to talk up when the system they used made them, there were 3 kids there who witnessed it. He was the only one who asked. And so they just copped it all year. New school, all year. Things like pulling his towel off in the swimming room. You know, telling him and his friend that they were
poor little darlings,
gay.
And you can imagine if someone already has some of the symptoms of trauma or, whatever, they're not going to have that ability to work that out, in their brains.
He couldn't work it out. So this has been a year and a half at this school, and the counsellor finally talked to him. I've been asking her, I've been bringing up the whole time.
Yeah.
But the teachers, and so he had all these physical symptoms.
Yeah.
And if you look up online, so bullying, physical symptoms, always sick, colds, coughs, headaches, diarrhea problems. These are all symptoms of bullying.
Yeah.
They're all physical.
Yeah.
Right?
And
they're all physical symptoms.
Yes.
Being sick all the time. And there's heaps of studies on it. It's not some mystery. But the teachers don't know something.
So totally off track. We were talking about concussion. So, and I'm sure everyone into concussion's gone by now. But anyway, so if we have injuries, injuries to our brain, B1 is really, really important. B1's really important. There's heaps of things that can be done with kinesiology, chiropractic, that sort of thing, to help to get the blood supply, the nerve supply back to the brain. For kids with ADHD and being bullied as well. But again, so there's lots of supplements that help to calm the nervous system in the brain. Nutrients, as we've discussed last week, 5-HTP, SAMe, GABA, lots of things that help to...
All the anxiety.
So basically things that help to create those neurotransmitters. Or as we've also discussed, the matured bitter hops extract, because that is toning the vagus nerve, calming the sympathetic nervous system, picking up the parasympathetic nervous system so it's more balanced. The body isn't fight, flight, freeze, fawn all the time. It's funny, there was an OT who was treating one of my clients, and she made the comment to my client that you can't supplement your way out of a sympathetic nervous system dominance. And it's funny because I thought, okay, that's interesting, because from my perspective as a kinesiologist, my first thing would always be to deal with the survival, deep survival and hidden deep survival, because I agree, if it's hardwired in the unconscious brain,
logic can't get you out of it.
Logic can't get you out of it, neither can creative thinking, because that blood supply's gone, no, life is stressful forever. However, I think the matured bitter hops extracts is a potential solution for people there with so many benefits.
Because it's interesting. So with all of those things we brought up, so the head injury, with the
mould,
emotional, psychological,
the ACE study, the adverse childhood event studies,
So similar treatments for like lifestyle treatments are different, obviously, different lifestyle things.
We still need sunshine, we still need exercise, we still need music, we still need, sort of
all the things that
music and fun and laughter in our life. We still need sex. If you're over 18. But anyway, it is, and making sure that if you're not getting what you need at home, find those humans in your life who give you what you need.
or school.
Or school. Yeah, if you're not get, so
It's harder at school because parents don't have any control over what goes on.
Yeah.
And at least at home, you can.
And so many people have tried so hard. And I've got, how many did we work out? 699 supplements I've got on the shelf or something like that. We were looking last week, and I sort of like. It's so exciting when you start getting someone's brain working better. I've had really good success with concussion in the past with stem and hands.
Right.
I know that people can improve their nervous system with the redox signaling molecules. So there are a lot of things that will help, as well as all our ANs, the stress N, adapt N, relax N, resilient. There's lots of things that just calm the brain. But again, like we were talking about, if that's been hardwired and changed the neuronal flow of the brain, then first you need your story told. So you need to talk to a counsellor.
Being able to talk, so disclosure, some types of disclosure are harder. Like just say if there's a volcano and one of your kids get killed, it's easy to tell because it just happened naturally. Whereas if somebody hits you at home, it's really embarrassing. People don't want to tell it. Just say it was your mum or your dad who hit you.
Yeah.
It's like you don't want to tell anyone. And not only you want to keep it a secret because you know that they love you, and they do anyway, so there's a complicated part with all of this stuff.
Yeah.
Is people need to disclose and say what happened, but sometimes it's very hard to disclose.
Yeah.
Like, for example, when the kid's being bullied at school, they can't disclose it to anyone there. Like, they need to disclose it there where it happens. Coming home and telling your parents won't help much.
No.
Do you know what I mean?
Because the whole system looks after the teachers and looks out, the whole system is designed to be convoluted and challenging. Anyway.
Yeah, but it's just a disclosure. It's like some things are very hard to talk about.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we went off on a tangent there for our tip of the day.
Oh, no.
I know. Yeah, we talked. Okay, cool. Cheers. Nice one, David. Have a good day, everyone. Mwah.